Good morning. I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm here with Will Mary Zambrano from your own congregation. Okay, how's that? I'm from the Center for Healing and Hope. I'm the Immigrant Resource Coordinator there, and one of the programs that I run is called Natural Helpers. And Natural Helpers are immigrants in the community that help other immigrants. And one of my natural helpers is Will Mary. So I invited Will Mary here today because I know that the situation that we're living right now is impacting her life in a unique way, in a way that it doesn't impact our lives. And so I asked her to share a little bit about how is it impacting her situation, her friends, and the people that congregate here at College Mennonite Church. So welcome, Will Mary.
Hola, buenos días a todos.
Good morning. ¿Cómo vamos a hacer?
No sé.
Yeah.
Ok. Para los que no me conocen, pues voy al servicio con la pastora Madeleine y David.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm part of the congregation with Madeline and David.
Y también pues les preparo el café en las mañanas, todos los domingos.
I also make coffee every single Sunday.
Ok. Gracias por invitarme y porque para nosotros como comunidad latina es muy importante aclarar ciertas cosas que están pasando actualmente en el país.
Thank you for inviting me. And for those of us who are Latinos in this country, it's important for me to clarify a few things that are happening.
Sé que muchos tienen diferentes opiniones y dudas al respecto de lo que está viviendo el país actualmente.
I know that people have different opinions and different perspectives about what is happening in this moment.
Y bueno, yo pues vengo a aclarar ciertas cosas referentes y sobre todo pues en el sentir de la familia, cómo estamos pasando esta situación como familia latina.
So I'm here today because I want to share how does it feel? How does it feel to be a Latino family in this moment here?
Yo soy de Venezuela, tengo ya 3 años y algunos meses acá.
I'm Venezuelan and I've been here for 3 years and a few months.
Y es importante aclarar el por qué muchos estamos actualmente fuera de nuestro país.
And I'd like to share, first of all, why are so many of us not in our own country?
Actualmente Venezuela está viviendo momentos difíciles, hemos tenido diferentes problemas a nivel de situación política y eso ha hecho que hay aproximadamente unos 7, 8 millones de venezolanos fuera de Venezuela en todas partes del mundo.
So we are having some difficult times in Venezuela. More than anything, they're political problems. And so there are about 7 to 8 million Venezuelans living outside of the country, not just here in the US, but all over the world.
Somos aproximadamente esa cantidad, creo que es el segundo éxodo más grande que ha habido a nivel mundial.
I think this is like the second biggest exodus of people from any one particular country in the whole world.
Y para nosotros como país estamos muy agradecidos de que Estados Unidos nos haya brindado una oportunidad y nos haya abierto las puertas. Estamos muy agradecidos con eso.
We are so grateful to the United States of America for giving us the opportunity to be here, for opening the doors to our people.
Sin embargo, las actuales políticas están haciendo muy complicada la situación a nivel migratorio, no nada más para nuestro país, sino para todos los migrantes que estamos acá.
Unfortunately, the politicians that are now leading the country are making things very difficult for us, not only for the people of Venezuela, our country, but for all immigrants.
Quizás La situación venezolana, el estatus quizás sea un poco más, de forma más legal para poder permanecer al país. Sin embargo, las acciones políticas están evadiendo y pasando quizás por muchas normas, no sé, la Constitución sería algo así. No, no sabría cómo explicar.
So the situation of Venezuelans is perhaps a little bit different than others. We actually have legal pathways to be here in the United States, but the situation is evading us. It's I don't understand if it's maybe there's something to do with the Constitution. I'm not really sure.
No estoy muy clara con eso, sin embargo, sí queremos poner bien en alto que nuestro país no está bien y que es un riesgo para nosotros, por lo menos los venezolanos y quizás diferentes nacionalidades, regresar a nuestro país, ya que corremos mucho peligro, corremos un riesgo muy grande.
What mostly what we want people to understand is that our country is not doing well. For us to return to our country is a huge risk. It is very dangerous for us. And if we get returned to our own country, that's just a risk too big to imagine.
Muchos salimos de nuestro país por persecución política.
Many of us have left our country because of political persecution.
Por lo tanto es muy riesgoso.
That's why it's so dangerous for us to return.
Así que nuestro sentir como familia y comunidad latina
The feeling that we have as a Latino families and the community, the Latino community,
es muy preocupante porque quizás el proceso que vivimos de persecución es muy fuerte y también se convierte muy doloroso para nosotros porque nos toca a nivel de ánimo estar viviendo nuevamente en otro país donde vinimos a buscar oportunidades.
um, so this situation of persecution hits us really hard in our hearts, in our souls, and to now be in a situation where we're thinking this could change, this could all change is on a feeling level, it's painful.
Por eso es que para nosotros es muy importante que ustedes sepan de la situación, de lo que estamos viviendo
That's why it's
actualmente.
so important for all of you, please, to understand the situation that we are living in this very moment.
Queremos aclarar algo porque sabemos que la prensa también ha tomado esto como una bandera y quizás parte del gobierno ha sido enfocarse mucho en lo que es la migración.
And we know that the journalists and news reporters are focusing a lot on migration and giving a certain perspective on immigration and migration.
Dando una imagen errada de lo que significa la comunidad latina para el país.
Giving a false impression of the Latino community in this country.
Por lo tanto, para nosotros se nos hace también un poco frustrante eso porque la mayoría de los latinos vinimos fue a hacer también un país, aportar para el país también cosas buenas, conocimientos, y es muy difícil estar pasando por esta situación tan dura porque tenemos mucho miedo, sobre todo las familias que tienen hijos, ser separados.
The situation with the press is really frustrating because it's representing us in a way that's not true, and it's very hurtful and frightening, especially for those of us who have children. And the fear of being separated from our children is palpable.
No sabemos qué va a pasar si llegamos a vivir esa situación. Sin embargo, muchas personas de la comunidad latina se está preparando para esto, haciendo documentaciones, con quién se pueden quedar nuestros niños en caso de vivir alguna de estas experiencias.
So many of us are having to prepare legal documents so that our children will be left in the hands of responsible people. We're having to make plans for our families in the case that this happens, but it's frightening.
Por lo tanto, se vuelve un poquito angustiante el hecho de poder hacer una vida normal porque no sabemos hasta cuándo va a ser como esta efusividad presidencial contra la parte migratoria. Entonces, también, si quieres, di esa parte para mí.
It's hard for us to live our daily lives normally because we have this incredible pressure or on us as we wait to see what this government is going to do with our lives.
Que también es lo preocupante de ahorita, es que muchos agentes se están llevando también a personas que tienen algún estatus en el país y no les está importando. Se está hablando de algo de puede ser afectado por un delito colateral. Entonces, esto pone en riesgo a todos.
Everyone is at risk because the agents are taking people even who have documents. So even those of us who have documents are afraid because when the agents have taken those people, they haven't respected the fact that they have legal authority to be in this country. So that is what is incredibly frightening for us.
Por lo tanto, es preocupante sobre todo para algunos inmigrantes que tienen situaciones de salud, como en el caso de personas que tienen pues alguna enfermedad, dependen de algún medicamento, los niños, es de verdad que se convierte bastante angustioso y muy desesperante para nosotros también.
And then if there's any complications in a person's life, for example, if your child is in need of special medications or you have a health issues, the whole thing gets very complicated very quickly and it's frightening. And it leaves us feeling without hope. We don't know where to turn to.
Entonces, bueno, en resumen literal, estamos pues pasando por esta dificultad y nosotros pues como comunidad latina esperamos pues el apoyo también de la comunidad, de que no nos hagamos em, de la vista gorda, como se dice, no sé cómo se...
You know how to translate that?
¿Quién,
You
quién
know how to
pudiera-
translate that? La vista gorda.
O no sé. Caso omiso. Caso omiso, sí, caso omiso. No sé cómo.
A la izquierda.
Sí, como evadir lo que está pasando.
Oh, okay. To like just not pay attention or not even look at. Put your head in the sand. I don't know. Forget about maybe that's how.
Sí, entonces para nosotros es muy importante de que ustedes estén informados y de que sepan qué es lo que está pasando en la comunidad latina.
It is really important for us and provides hope for us to know that there are people who know the truth about what is actually happening. And so we need you. We need you in our community. We need you to know what's actually happening in our lives, and to not just avoid this whole topic. We need you to be paying attention. We need you to be engaged in what is happening.
Así que bueno, esperamos de ustedes pues también mucho apoyo y siempre agradeciéndoles y también que busquen informarse mucho. La prensa no está dando información buena. No todos somos malos, no todos somos delincuentes, somos buenos, somos más.
We are not all delinquents. We are not all bad people. We are good people. We're here with you in your community. We are so thankful to College Mennonite Church, to the support that we've gotten from you. Please keep yourselves informed with what is actually happening. Take what is being said in the press with a grain of salt. It's not all true, and a bucket of salt. Okay, so, but thank you. Most of all, we thank you and we're glad that you're part of our community.
Muchas gracias. Que tengan buen día.
Thank you so much. Gracias, Mary. So I just ran into Will Mary right before this happened, and it gives me a lot of joy to be able to tap her on the shoulder and say, hey, will you come and speak? Because when we were in South America, that happened to us all the time. We'd be walking into church service and Gerald would get tapped on the shoulder. Can you give the message today? Sure. So he got to where he carried a message in his back pocket because you never knew. So I like to give it back to Will Mary now and say, hey, Will Mary, can you come and speak today? And she said, of course she can. So thank you for making the space to hear from one of your people what is actually happening. It's been really hard on a personal, family level, emotional level. And I think sometimes we lose that side, that human side of daily living with that incredible chaos. We kind of lose sight of what that must be like, fearing that your children at any day could be separated from you. I mean, it's hard to even imagine how you go about making coffee in the morning when you have those kind of stresses. Anyway, I am going to turn this over to Alicia McLeod, who she and I have been working together collaboratively. She's from MCC. And so we've been working collaboratively together here. And we've spoken in a couple of other Sunday school classes together. So she's going to give us an overview, a little bit of the political situation.
Yes. Good morning. I have been it's just been such a blessing to be able to work with Jane and Center for Healing and Hope in my current position. I've been in my position as the Peace and Justice Coordinator for MCC Great Lakes now for about 6 months. I don't know if it's go ahead. If the slide changes. Yeah, so I'm sure most of you guys know what MCC is. This is mostly a slide to remind me to say who I am. Alicia McLeod, Peace and Justice Coordinator. We would consider Center for Healing and Hope one of our partners here at MCC in the local area and for the Great Lakes region. Go ahead.
Try it. Did you try it?
Perfect. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what is happening right now. So one of the things we just heard was to stay informed. And so I'm going to give a quick overview of some terms that we're hearing. I don't know about you guys, but when I turn on the news, it just comes at me so quickly, and sometimes I don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to kind of give some definitions to kind of help us understand what's going on. But first, what is migration? It's simply people moving from one place to another. This has happened for as long as we can remember. I'm going to give you guys a quick pop quiz. What are some biblical examples of migration?
Palestine.
Yeah, Israel to Egypt to Palestine. Abraham.
Joseph going to
Egypt. So right here's like a quick list. Adam and Eve having to leave the garden, right? That's first example of migration in scripture. Joseph being forcibly taken to Egypt. That would be an example of forced migration. It wasn't by choice. Moses and the Israelites, also realizing that there's a typo there, ignore that. And then Ruth and Naomi, and then Mary and Joseph and Jesus when they had to go to Egypt as well. So the Bible also talks about how we're supposed to care for immigrants amongst us. So so this is easier. Okay, so in Exodus 22:21, it says, "You shall not wrong any sojourner or oppress him, for you were once sojourners in the land of Egypt." Hebrews 12:1-3, "Keep loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing." And then Matthew 25:37-40. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick and in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So it's just kind of a foundation as we jump into some of this conversation. I'm hitting the wrong button. Okay, so reasons people migrate. There are several why people might be moving. Violence, such as gangs, state-sanctioned violence, war, economics, political conflict or persecution, and environmental. Current statistics are showing that over 100 million people are forced to flee due to persecution, conflict, violence, human rights violations, events seriously disturbing public order. That is 1 in 78 people in the world that are having to move. So how are people coming to the United States? This is where it's going to get a little technical. I'm not going to go through every single definition word for word, but the first is temporary visas. People are coming here, traveling here, coming to school here, and so that's usually a temporary visa. Then there's several humanitarian visas. There's refugee and asylum. Those definitions are very similar. So that's for non-citizens who have fled their home country because of well-founded fear of persecution based on their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. The difference between those two things would be that a refugee is often already displaced in a camp, like a refugee camp somewhere, and are applying outside of the United States and then getting approval to come in, where asylum seekers must be on United States soil in order to ask for asylum. So when we're hearing those two terms, very similar in the reasons why people are migrating, the difference is how they're entering the United States. Other humanitarian things would be temporary protected status, which is very similar, except it's non-citizens from certain countries who have experienced natural disasters, civil wars, and other destabilizing events. Current countries include Afghanistan, El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nicaragua, Syria, Ukraine, and Venezuela. And then you have DACA, which is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This is not a visa. This is just saying that there is deferred action, so they are not at immediate risk of deportation. So that's currently still in place. And then these other ones, special immigrant juvenile status, T visas, U visas, and VAWA visas, are very specific to things like human trafficking, victims of violence, things like that. So those are very, very specific in order to access that type of visa. If you want those specific definitions, come talk to me afterwards. And then there's also what we often hear as undocumented or unauthorized. And so this could be people who are coming on a temporary visa and staying, somebody who came and sought asylum and did not win their case and stayed. So there's or people crossing the border without documentation. So there's multiple reasons why people might fit into that category. Unaccompanied minors is one we often hear. That would be someone who's here in the United States without a guardian. And then family sponsored, which we're going to talk about here in a second, that's one way people may enter, but that is a very complicated process. This is a very extensive chart. I can email it to you later if you want it, but it's just showing the complexities of how long it actually takes to become a United States permanent resident, and how often the answer is just no, you do not qualify. Like if you are a married child, like you might not qualify to enter even if your parent is a legal resident. So this is very complex, but good news, if you have $1 million, come on over. Like you are welcome in the United States. So that's the easiest way. So if you guys have $1 million, go for it. Another term, have you guys heard of the CBP One app? Okay, so this is something that is newer to me, but was really interesting. I just got back from the border and heard a lot about this. So CBP One was the way that people could come to the United States with asylum. So they would come to the border and download this app on your phone and basically be entered into a lottery and you would wait at the Mexico border until you were called to enter. This came up in 2024. Biden put this in place. And then once your name was called, you could go to a port of entry. They would interview you. If you met the qualifications for asylum, like this isn't like, yes, you have asylum. It's like, yeah, you might win a court case. You can enter the United States and wait for your court case. But if you didn't, you were automatically at risk of deportation at that point. So like they might send you back to your country if they're like, yeah, that doesn't meet the qualification. So people have been waiting at the border. Sometimes because it was a lottery system, they put their name in. Some people waited 2 to 3 days. Some people waited up to 9 months to a year. And so that was the system that was in place. It's no longer in place. So we'll talk about this here in a second. So just a couple of updates on immigration. So this is one of them. CBP-1 has been discontinued, and there's not really a great way to seek asylum. So the ports of entry have kind of been shut down. Like I said, you have to be on United States soil in order to seek asylum. And so if you look at all of our government websites, it says, yeah, you come to the United States and you fill out this form and then you get your court case. But right now, the ports of entry, like you can't really access those because the CBP-1 was shut down. It has been said that Remain in Mexico will go back into effect. And Remain in Mexico would mean that you would come to a port of entry and say, I would like to seek asylum. And then you have to stay in Mexico for the duration of your entire court hearing until that asylum is granted. And they say, yes, you've won your case, then you can enter the United States, where previously it was come to the United States and wait for your court case here in the country. Executive order to remove birthright citizenship. So that's currently blocked and in courts. Executive order that has stopped all funding for current refugee resettlement and a pause on accepting refugees for at least 90 days. This has also impacted finances and aid for servicing like refugees in other countries right now too. So there's a lot tied up in that. And then an executive order declaring the border as a national emergency, which allows military to be called, basically work as border patrol. When I was in Texas, we were in a desert at one point, and we had border patrol helicopters going over us, but we also then had military helicopters kind of monitoring what we were doing in the desert. And then executive order opening Guantanamo Bay for 30,000 beds. Migrants have already started to enter into that space. And then currently revoked TPS status for 350,000 Venezuelans. And that would be revoked 60 days from the order. So I don't know that exact date, but that would be about 60 days from now when that would happen.
And to clarify, that's where Wilmer refits. Yeah.
Right. That would be where she fits in. Yep. So that is currently, this is not to be like, oh, like political, but like this is currently the state of what's happening. And I know when I read or like am looking at the news, I often feel very overwhelmed by the amount of things coming at me. So this is just a brief snapshot of what's happening there. So I'm gonna have Jane come up and talk.
So people do ask me, what are you seeing at the Center for Healing and Hope? Well, I'll just give you a few little vignettes from last week. Okay, had a woman come in who was DACA, had deferred action for childhood arrivals. She came to our country when she was a young child, 5 or 6, I think. When she was about 16, she got herself a job. For some reason, the people who had hired her decided she couldn't work there anymore, and they turned her in. And guess what? She became a felon. She became a felon because she was working to provide for her family. Since that time, her parents have become residents, and all of her siblings are citizens of the United States. She is a felon, and she wants help from us. And I don't have an answer for her. I've had people like Wilmer and her family come in who are Venezuelans who don't know what is happening with their TPS status. They don't know. And so thankfully, I've been working with MCC. I got a very mini grant to help people get consultations with attorneys so they can get some legal counsel. What do I do? What should I do? So that's one thing I've been working on with families who are just confused by the chaos and don't know where to turn. I've had people who are living in our community for 30 years who, came from Mexico. They don't have documents, but they've been paying into our system for 30 years. And they are afraid. It's a chaotic moment right now. And there's a lot of fear, a lot of fear. I see people back to back. One woman last week, a patient, asked if she could just come into my office and talk for a minute after her medical appointment. And she just said, why do they hate us? Why does everybody hate us? And I tried to just calm her fears and say, there are people in our community who don't feel this way. There are attorneys in our community that are working on your behalf, that are trying to slow some of these things down. We don't all hate you. I know that's what is in the news right now, but we have to make our voices louder so that our neighbors know that we are on their side. And I'm not sure exactly how we need to do that, but we need to do that. So there's one migration story that I've been drawn to from the Bible recently. And the question that this woman asked was, how can you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink? So Jesus in this story is a migrant, and he's traveling from Judea to Galilee, and he experiences real thirst, right? Like many migrants who are traveling across the world, he experiences real thirst, real hunger, real fatigue. And just by asking for a drink of water, he breaks down walls and he challenges the laws. So many immigrants are in our community. They come to the Center for Healing and Hope and they ask for help. In a sense, they're asking for access to our local well. When Jesus asked for a drink of water, this water was critical for his survival, just as the migrants in our community who are asking for help are asking for things that are critical for their survival. Jesus faced these physical challenges during his migration through Palestine, and many of our neighbors have experienced perilous journeys in search of safety for their families. And here they are amongst us in Elkhart County. Jesus chose to travel through Samaria, which presented him with this sticky legal and theological issues. And by asking for a drink of water, Jesus begins to break down the wall erected by the Jewish law. Our neighbors are coming to us as Jesus. Thirsty people needing access to essential resources. So what will be our response to them? Are we going to say, well, how can you, an immigrant, ask me, an Elkhart County resident, for a drink? How can you, an immigrant, ask me, an Elkhart County resident, for access to our resources? Or will we say, kind of rise up to the challenge, find our shared humanity, and then in the process be transformed by this interaction with Jesus? We are the local people who have access to the well. And we have to make that well available to other people. These are basic resources like medical services, food, housing. And as Will Mary, she explained a little bit about the political situation in Venezuela. And thanks be to God, the Venezuelans have had access to like a legal way of getting here, but many other people aren't given that opportunity. But the situation they're coming from is equally as horrific. They make decisions to leave their countries in less than 24 hours because their brother was killed. And so they pick up their family and they start going and they get to the first border. And at that first border, all of their documents are taken. And then they keep going, walking, riding buses, swimming through rivers. And they keep going and they get to the next border and maybe their daughter is raped. And they keep going and they get to another border and then they have to face Border Patrol. And they are treated terribly and they're put in rooms that are ice cold for days at a time. And eventually they come and eventually here they are in Elkhart County and they're our neighbors. And then they have to face people who just don't like them, who just don't even like seeing them on the street, who bump into them, push them out of the way when they go to buy food. We are the people with access to the well, to the local well. We know how the system works, and it's our responsibility to help them get access, gain access to the local well. So I ask you if you want to join with Center for Healing and Hope in the work that we're doing. I'm the Immigrant Resource Coordinator. I see about 60 people a month who come through asking for help to access to the local well, to pay their rent, to pay medical bills, and now for legal reasons. I heard this morning in your after the service was over that you have a legal fund. That is absolutely fantastic. Give money to that. People are going to need to get bailed out of jail. Bail bonds are going to be needed to get people out of jail. People are going to need to file for work permits. Those cost about $470. And I heard just this morning that there are about 15 people who go to this church who are in need of renewing their work permits. And each one of those work permits costs $470. And it doesn't matter if you're a 7-year-old child, in order to have a social security number, you need to file for a work permit. So those are 15 people in your congregation who need to pay $470 each to renew their work permits. It's one way for them to feel like they still have something to hold on to, that perhaps maybe that will make it possible for them to continue living here. So yeah, just that's the story I want to leave with you. And then I guess, do we have time for questions? I don't know.
Let's take a bit of time for questions.
Okay.
I'm curious where ICE has been in Indiana working, or any problems that way?
Maybe Alicia can answer that. I know that there have been, what would you call it? Vigilantes? People who have been posing as ICE have been in Goshen. But for the people who are impacted, it doesn't matter if it is ICE or it's someone posing as ICE. It's equally as frightening. So I don't know. Do you have any information?
It's hard to track everything that ICE is doing right now. And so I haven't heard of any specific examples of ICE in Indiana, but I know that there are some things in place at the state level right now that would enable, I don't know if it passed or not. I think last week there was a House bill in place to talk about how police would have to pass information or cooperate with ICE. So I don't know if that actually passed or not. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I'll look into that.
I heard Madeline Maldonado say that they had been in Elkhart. ICE had been in Elkhart. That was in our church publication.
Yeah, that's very possible. I don't know for sure to say that. I heard that too, but I can't stand in front of you all and say for sure. But I do know that there were people who were posing as ICE that were in Goshen.
How long are the work permits allowed, or what's the length of time? And are there employers in the area that are denying work permit, saying they don't want the workers anymore? Are they in fear of being prosecuted or, you know?
I think that if people have a valid work permit, that employers in town are happy to continue with them working. I'm gonna ask Carlos real quick. El permiso para trabajar, ¿cuántos años? It's lasts for 5 years. Mhm. Thank you.
Do you know of any congregations that have a strategy of how to respond should ICE come onto church property?
I don't know of any churches specifically, but I would highly recommend that churches do have that conversation because safe spaces have also been removed, which means ICE can go into schools, hospitals, and churches. So I know I'm going to talk specifically MCC for a second. There are considered private spaces and public spaces, and so knowing what those are and knowing the difference between a ICE warrant and a judicial warrant are going to be important things. So let me just briefly explain that. So in order to enter any private spaces, so that could be like an office or your home or things like that. So private, it's not open to the public. People shouldn't just be able to walk in. ICE should have a judicial warrant. So one thing that's been happening some is that ICE can have what is like, I don't know the exact name, but it's basically like an ICE officer can say, this is a warrant, and the ICE officer will sign it saying, we're looking for this person. And so they'll often hold that up, and it can be confusing because the word warrant could be used. But it's not an official warrant. It does not actually gain access to those private spaces. A judicial warrant is needed. So that would be a warrant that has a judge's signature. So knowing the difference between those two, I will add this to our slides for the future, but like of what a judicial warrant is, so that if somebody does come into your church, you know what that looks like, and you actually need to look for a judge's signature. So to answer your question, I don't know of specific churches' plans, but I would say that conversation should be happening somewhere. Did you comment?
Well, a church is a public space. And so a judicial warrant is not needed in a public space.
How are the children doing? I'm back here.
How are the children doing? Children are having to have conversations or are having conversations at school together, not organized that I know of, you know, what am I going to do if my parents are deported? Kids are having these offline conversations with each other, and teachers are hearing kids having these offline conversations. Kids are coming. I know there's one woman that works at the Center for Healing and Hope whose children came home from school and said, "Mama, what do I do when they take you?" That's what our children in our schools in Goshen and Elkhart County are living with right now. So you take the, you know, kids, oh, I remember our kids when they were little, one of their friends' families, the parents were getting divorced, and at night in bed, they were so worried. And I remember just laying in bed when we were reading the books together. They were so worried about whether Gerald and I were going to get divorced and what was going to happen to them when we got divorced. And we said, we're not, that's not going to happen. But imagine, take that to the next level. What is going to happen if the government comes and takes you, mommy? What should I do? I mean, kids have feeling a lot of anxiety. I don't know how they focus on their 2 + 2 when they're worried if their mama is going to be taken.
What is the requirements for a work permit? Frankly, don't know.
Requirements for a work permit. ¿Quiere informarnos? Los requisitos para el permiso de trabajar. You need some documents that they have given you when you cross the border. You need to have the birth certificates of your children. You need to have a social security number. And you have to show your work permit that's about to run out, expire. And you need to pay $470. So it's people who are here with TPS, temporary protective status, or some of those other legal pathways. They have, they get a work permit, or asylum seekers will get a work permit even while they're waiting for their court date. So if you apply for asylum and your paperwork is received, then the government will give you a work permit for 3 to 5 years, and while you wait for your case, because the cases aren't being seen right away.
It seems to me that Elkhart County is absolutely vital that we have these immigrant workers. The county depends on it.
We happen to have in our midst the economics professor from Goshen College, who perhaps would like to say something about that.
Okay, my name is Gerald, as many of you know. Yeah, this county definitely depends on that. One of the women's in the story, one of the stories that Jane was telling, I've heard her tell the story in more detail. She was flipping burgers at a restaurant that probably many of you have eaten at, right? So the workers are working in our county doing all kinds of things. They were the ones washing the dishes in the restaurants, right? They're the ones also working in the RV manufacturing plants here locally. We absolutely need them. I sent letters to the editor of the Goshen News and the Elkhart Truth. I don't know if they've come out, just explaining the horrible economics of removing labor from our country and how that will be a cause of inflation, much less be immoral and unattractive in other ways. I think that the current president, if I can get political for a moment, perceives that this is a popular issue. If he and others would learn that this is not a good idea and that it is not popular and that they will not be reelected, then that would be powerful. And so I think it's easy for us with privilege just to say, wow, this is hard on them, but it's going to be hard on all of us because these are our brothers and sisters. And we do have access to the well. And the well is God's well. It's not our well, right? We have the jobs that we have, the positions we have because of what we've been given. And we are like the people with the 5 talents in the parable of the talents. We have the ability to share and we have the ability to change things. And I think it's important that we stand up to do that.
Okay, I would have, thanks. I would have missed calling on the economics professor, even though I know. Thanks for thinking with us this morning and presenting this really profoundly important issue that most of us here are very involved in. And it's one thing I wanted to say right at the end, Phil Waite made an announcement about a MCC webinar and said it, you know, you can come here at 2 o'clock to see it, but also you can see it at your home too. And I'm wondering, I'll send that link to John if they're, just in case there are people who've not been aware of it and don't have that link, and for whatever reason would find it easier to watch it at home or at a Greencroft setting where there may be a group setting also. Are there other announcements? June, you look like you.
Isn't there a resistance event at the courthouse planned for February 22? It was in the newspaper. And I would encourage all of us to be there, just your body being present. We don't have to say anything, but I read that in Goshen News.
Okay.
I know it's not the top of our news supply.
Well, thanks for bringing us information from the Goshen News. I didn't know about it.
Well, we'll be gone for 3 months. Pray for us in trying to interpret what is happening in the US to our friends in the UK.
Okay. Go in peace.